847 Encina Avenue in Imperial Beach. This is Ian with Build Brothers. Going to go ahead and inspect this new torch down roof at the Boys and Girls Club. I'm at the top of the ladder now, and some of the first things we noticed are, well, the major ponding areas on this roof. This roof does not drain very well. It holds a lot of water, and that's not necessarily the roofer's fault. That is just the way the building was built. The drainage is very poor, but we would strongly advise doing something to build up this roof to get it to drain better, or use a product that is built to withstand ponding water better than this torch down roof. So this is what we call a modified bitumen torch down material. There is evidence that it is 2 layers. And by 2 layers, I mean there's a smooth layer of the really thick torch down roofing product, and then there's the granulated cap sheet that we see here. The evidence that we see is, as we look down these rows, we see a little lump right down the middle of each course. That is the overlap or the seam of the smooth layer underneath this cap sheet. To confirm that, we would have to actually take a core sample, but there is evidence that both layers are there. Both 2 layers is required on a project like this. And so we move on from the material and we start to look at workmanship, and we immediately start to notice all kinds of issues. This is what would be considered the proper amount of bleed out, and that's where an experienced roofer that is working the torch as this material is installed is melting the product, and the tar is bonding to the overlap. On this roof, there's a lot of inconsistent bleed out, and there's a lot of missing bleed out, meaning that there are a lot of loose seams. And a loose seam in an area of the roof where the roof drains properly, like right here, 0 bleed out there. But this part of the roof doesn't hold water. 0 bleed out here, but that part of the roof doesn't hold water. We come over and we can assume that there's a whole lot of loose seams and missing bleed out in these giant ponding areas, and water is in fact finding its way in there. Now, it's obvious that this roof has had lots and lots of issues, and the roofer has been back to try to make it right and try to fix it. But unfortunately, we think there are just too many fundamental issues. In some of these loose seams, it looks like he's come back and tried to fix it with mastic. Mastic is a temporary solution and will get you through a rainy season, but it's not going to get the 20+ year lifespan out of this roof. It's just going to continue leaking season after season. We know that this is one of the major areas. We see that an attempted repair was done with this patch torch down here. And again, if this roof were 15 years old and we were just trying to get the last few years of life out of it, well, then a patch like this would be acceptable, but not acceptable on a brand new roof. What's going on here in this radius area, I don't know what all of these little mastic smears are, but again, that's a temporary fix, not a long-term fix. We can see just the lack of attention to detail by these wavy cuts of the material. There's just red flags everywhere that it's a sloppy, inexperienced roofer, unfortunately. If we come over to this wall, we see that the torch down, it's not unusual to find loose seams on the walls, because the walls are much less critical to get a really good bond. And so we do see that very normal on commercial roofs like this that have a wall with torch down material. Here's a loose seam. We don't see any bleed out there, but we see that the wall material overlaps the roof deck material. And until we come over here, and I've never seen this method used, but we've got cap nails used to secure that overlap all the way around this roof, and so it's just flapping in the wind, and the material's actually been penetrated. So is there high likelihood of water going up there? No, but again, it's just red flag after red flag on this roof. One of the first places, a well-installed torch down roof will have its first issues years down the line where the material meets the drip edge. He has used the proper drip edge. It's called bonderized. It's a coating that makes it so that the tar sticks really well. But we've noticed that there is bleed out like this, and then there's bleed out that looks brand new. And so he has attempted to come back and heat the material in place to try to get better adhesion. And unfortunately, it's not gonna work. I made a big red mark over here for this whole area. He looks like he's gone back and tried to reheat it to get it to stick. And could or could not work. But then right here, we've got a big old mastic repair that will not last long term. And as we work our way around this roof, we see the same consistent issues again and again. Loose seam there. Instead of mastic, he used caulking here on this loose seam. Temporary solution. Ponding, loose seams, caulking, again and again. Here we can actually see down to the fiberglass layer of the cap sheet material because too much heat was applied there. It looks like a boot print went nearly through the material. I'll show you something over here. On the drip edge overlaps. They only come in 10-foot sections, and so they overlap each other. And where those overlaps happen is a critical waterproofing area. That one looks like it's got more heat. They applied more heat to it, and that one looks pretty good. It's loose there. And then we start to see some gappy overlaps. Well, water can definitely get between there and find its way into the roof. And so these areas are critical. Loose seam there. This one gets really gappy there. So there are active leaks all over this brand new roof, unfortunately. Now, we get up to the solar section, and it's one giant pond up there. Again, the ponding is not necessarily the roofer's fault. Something should have been proposed, like a resloping or a built-up roof, to get rid of this ponding, because this is totally unacceptable. Again, we have the same issues with loose seams around the perimeter and loose seams in the interior in these ponding areas. These waterproofing pucks are called, what are they called, Nick? Chem curbs, excuse me. Chem curbs are a great product. They come with a long warranty, but they are not designed to be installed underwater. And we've got a whole bunch of chem curbs sitting in water, and every one of those will fail over time. In the areas where this roof drains properly, those chem curbs are gonna work great. They're made to withstand wet conditions, but they're not made to withstand ponding conditions. This puddle is gonna sit here for weeks before it dries, and it's gonna grow moss, and it's gonna break down the waterproofing M1 that was used on these chem curbs. And so we're gonna have to suggest a complete removal of the solar system, resloping this upper section at least, trying to do something about the ponding on the lower sections, re-roofing the whole building, and then putting the solar back up. Trying to find all of the little details that were missed, that were screwed up during this project. It's going to be impossible, and this roof is always going to have issues. We briefly discussed a coating option, which coatings are roll-on applications for old roofs, but the roof, they only work for a roof that was installed very well, was done properly, but is just nearing the end of its life. And so a coating would not be a viable solution for this issue.